Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to answer one of the most frequently asked questions that I've received over the last couple of years, and that is, what was the worst day that we've ever had here in our homestead? I think it's important to answer this question, and no, today's video is not going to be upbeat and fun like most of our other videos are, but it is really an honest look at what it is to homestead. And I'd really like to see or hear what your guys' feedback is as to how you would have handled this situation and if you would have handled it differently. With that said, guys, welcome back to another episode of our Farmhouse. And hopefully this video gives you some insight into homesteading and really gets you thinking about what this process looks like and prepares you for future problems that you can encounter as you continue your journey towards self-sufficiency. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into the story. So as I've explained in other videos, my daughter and I, we've owned our homestead here for a little over 5 years. And this is actually the sixth season of our YouTube channel as we continue to document our progress towards building a certain level of self-sufficiency. We're not by no means trying to be completely self-sufficient, but we do want to build an infrastructure here where we can produce at least 50% of our food during the summer months. And that said, our homestead has grown quite a bit, but it did look very different just a few short years ago, approximately 2.5 years ago. And at that time, we had, what was it, about a dozen turkeys. We had about 30 chickens. We had 5 or 6 rabbits. We had bees. We had a workstation up here in our barn, and really things were thriving and we were very lucky. We also had ducks at that time, and everything was going really, really well. And we were building towards that self-sufficiency until one day, like I said, about 2.5 years ago. And I specifically remember it was on a Friday. It was kind of, what was it, late summer, I want to say, so probably beginning of August, when I got home from work with my daughter and we worked out here outside for a couple of hours. It was getting into the early afternoon. We head inside, I gave her a bath, and while I was giving her a bath, our dog Duke, he started freaking out and was barking, which is kind of unusual for him. He'll bark when there's someone that comes over to the house or if the mailman brings a package up to the door. But that day he continued to bark and bark and bark and wouldn't stop. I went, looked out the window several times. I couldn't figure out what he was barking at. We have security cameras here. I pulled up the security camera real quick just to check the door, and nobody was here. So kind of got after him, told him to go lay down. And I got Atlas's bath done. We went, got dressed, and we were actually leaving to go meet family. So she got dressed. As we come outside, I'm getting my shoes on. She walks out in front of me, and she comes back in, and she's very upset, borderline crying. And I asked her if everything was okay, and she really wasn't responding. I picked her up. We walked outside, and as soon as we got outside, up on our driveway, were about 30 dead chickens and turkeys. Blood everywhere. It was a horrible mess. I immediately took her back inside, thinking that something clearly had done this, and I didn't want her to be in any danger. So I took her inside, and I came back outside to find that all of our rabbits had been killed, all of our ducks, chickens, turkeys, and except for I think there was 2 or 3 turkeys that did survive. And out of the rabbits, one was actually one that Atlas and I had gotten just the day before for her mother. It was a very sad situation. Immediately went back inside, pulled up the security camera footage, and quickly found that there were 2 husky dogs that got loose in the neighborhood a little ways down. Came actually all the way across town through the neighborhood and came here and just killed every animal that we had. They got into the barn through a garage door that was open. They knocked down some shelves trying to get a cat and ended up breaking a ton of glass, a ton of furniture. They just ripped up everything. They got threw the chicken coop into the chicken run, killed all of them, and they didn't eat any of these animals. They would just pick them up, thrash them around until they were wounded beyond repair, and they would move on to the next one. You can imagine the property behind me here. It was just peppered with dead birds, dead poultry, dead rabbits. Our front yard, they brought them up to the door and they dropped them at the door, and really it was just a horrific scene. So seeing this on the security camera footage made me very frustrated. But what made me even more frustrated was the fact that the owner came up and seen what they had done, grabbed the two dogs, and ran as fast as they could over to a car that was parked behind some trees, loaded them up, and took off back towards town. Now in this situation, I did call the police just to get a police report. The sheriff's officer came out, was very friendly, and unfortunately said this is something that's quite common. He had never seen anything to this extent, but he took down my information, told me to take the security camera footage, post it on our local Facebook group for our village, and to see if anyone had any information, because if he found the owner, he was going to cite them with having their dogs off leash. He said that's essentially what they could do, and then I could civilly go after them for any type of damage like that. Now, during that time, I continued to walk around my property, and I found that the dogs barreled into our beehive, completely destroying it. They ripped up some of our garden. They caused the damage inside, which was probably well over $600, $650, I think we evaluated at that time, just in raw materials, a lot of glass. And then the actual poultry, the ducks, the turkeys, the chickens, all of those animals that were killed. In total, once we added up, almost $200 for bees, about $150 for the beehive. The chickens, to replace them, we were looking at, I want to say at that time, about $120. The turkeys are quite expensive. We were looking at probably about $300-400. And again, this is not counting the feed that it took to get them to where they were. Ducks, we were looking at probably $50-60 worth. In total, I think we were looking at $1,100-1,200 in total damage. And on top of that, my daughter had gone out and seen just this horrific scene, and I had to spend the entire afternoon cleaning up all of these dead animals or dying animals, and then get the power washer out and power wash all this blood off. We had neighbors coming over asking if everything was okay. It had just been an ongoing situation with dogs, and in every scenario, they were huskies, and they weren't always the same huskies, and they didn't belong to the same household, but it was just a nightmare. That evening, I took the security camera footage, I put it on our local Facebook page for our village. Nothing graphic, just showing the owner walking away with the dogs and the tail end of the car, but you couldn't make out the license plate on it. Within maybe a minute or two, it had 200 shares, and it had dozens of comments on it about these same dogs causing all kinds of damage throughout the village, and then the post was taken down. I had a Facebook administrator for the page that had reached out to me and explained to me that unfortunately posting content like that was prohibited on the village Facebook page because it could incite violence, and it was not a desirable post for the village, which made me extremely frustrated. They told me I should turn to local law enforcement, and I messaged them back explaining that I did, and that I was asked to share the video on Facebook to find out who the owner was. Now, unfortunately, in that scenario, I never did find out who the owner was. We immediately came back out. We got new chickens. We got new turkeys. We didn't get ducks at the time, and we had not replaced our bees. And we got a couple of rabbits. Now, fast forward, it's getting cold out. It's about to snow, and the same exact situation happens, this time with a different owner and two different huskies. And I know they're different because of the security camera footage. Now, ever since then, we've never really truly recovered our homestead, and not because of a financial component to it, but more out of the concern as to if we do this again, is something bad gonna happen? And this year, I am fairly certain we are going to get chickens again. We have to do some repairs to that chicken run, but when you consistently are having stray dogs coming over and they're killing hundreds of dollars worth of animals, and again, it's not the money, it's just the fact that these animals are suffering, and it's a waste of my time, my money, and really I don't want to deal with cleaning it up again. What would you do in that scenario? I'd love to hear your guys' feedback as to how you would handle it. The second time that it did happen, we were able to figure out who it was. They actually, I made a post on Facebook that time without any video. It was taken down, but before it was taken down, the actual owner of the dogs reached out to me and apologized, and brought over, I believe it was a $150 check to cover some of the cost of what the damage was. But what would you do? I talked to the police about if the dogs came back, shooting the dogs. He said I was well within my rights to do that in a certain aspect of self-defense, but to do it to protect property, he said I would likely go to jail because I would be discharging a firearm next to the village, and that it would be a safety hazard to the people living around me. Now, I do live in a rural community. I live in the country, actually in the township. The village is across the street from me on one side, and this is all country behind me, with the average lot being a couple of acres. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and again, I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts or opinions are on this. I appreciate you guys listening to the story. You've asked for it for a long time, and I figured it was about time that I shared it. Again, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave it in the comment section below. I do appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I do want to ask you that you please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Our channel is continuing to grow. I think we've gained about 600 subscribers just in the last couple of weeks, and we do appreciate that. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this content, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.